thank you for making it, JoJo. It's good to see you, my brother, man. We go back a ways now. It's like 15 years or so.
17 to be exact, 2003.
Dang.
So it's gonna be 18 years almost.
Man, that's cool. And I've seen there's been good times, there's been difficulties coming to your dad's funeral. You took that well, but I know that had to hit hard. You love your dad. He's been there. He's been a good grandfather, a good father. It's got to be tough for him. You did so much time. I mean, how are you doing with your father's passing, bro?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, I'm glad I was able to make amends with him, you know, coming home, you know, because as a young kid, you know, I had a lot of mixed emotions with him, the way he raised me, you know, because as a young boy, you know, he taught me how to be tough, how to be resilient, how to, you know, take on pain. You know, him being a Vietnam veteran, a U.S. Marine, you know, gung-ho, you know, he raised me like that. I break my arm, he'll grab me and, you know, tell me, don't cry, suck it in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he taught me how to fight. He taught me, you know, he pretty much taught me that violence solves everything, you know, and what that meant was somebody hit me, you know, I better smash on them. And, you know, unfortunately, that type of upbringing, you know, brought a lot of other trials with it, you know, always responding to violence, you know, in school from kindergarten on up. I was always fighting, always getting into that kind of trouble. Every time I felt challenged, it was always about, you know,
Dominating.
dominating.
Man, if I can just say, you guys, this is lives matter, you know, and it's all about relationships. And I respect JoJo a lot. If you met him today, you would never guess about the type of life that he lived. You know, he started getting busted around like 8 years old, did most of his life up until we met, busted, you know, and then we became friends when he was in, you know, in that transition from prison to the streets. There was a transitionary period. And there were some times, you know, old behaviors wanted to creep up and we'd chop it up and, hey, it ain't worth it. And man, you know, we got limited time, but can you kind of just back us up, kind of run your story a little bit about when you started getting busted, started banging, then you got 45 to life. How did you get out after 45 to life? Then what happened? And just, you know, bang, 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 bro. You know, sorry, brother.
I got you. You know, just in a nutshell, I was born in Glendale, being raised in East LA around Cypress Park area, Avenues, all that area. I had 3 sisters older than myself. You know, I had a lot of family members that were all from that area. And, you know, as a young boy, I'm talking about, you know, I could go back and there's very, very visual memories from when I was like 3 years old of my house being shot up, a lot of police brutality going on in the streets, my family fighting against cops and stuff like that. I believe it was probably about 4 years old when I seen my first dead body down the stairs of our house right there in, you know, East LA. And my mother and father, you know, they were both you know, working parents. You know, we weren't poor, you know, but we weren't rich. You know, we were, you know, we had more than enough though, you know. And they decided to sell our house in East LA and move us out to San Gabriel Valley to the city of La Puente. And I guess they must have looked there during the daytime or on a good day when they didn't see no violence. But little did we know though, you know, my house was located in the central area of like 6 rival gangs. And we didn't realize, you know, where our parents had placed us, you know, but my sisters who were a lot older than me, and, you know, I had some stepbrothers, you know, some younger guys, you know, that were older than me that were close to my family, you know, like my mother and father were like their ninos and stuff. And they were raising them kind of, you know, off and on. And, you know, they got involved in the gang stuff quickly. So once again, I'm in the middle of shootings and drugs, and my sisters, you know, they were, you know, involved in the PCP scene, cocaine, you know, smoking weed, all that stuff. And, you know, my neighbors, I grew up on a street with like 20 kids, all my age. So we would always be outside. And a lot of my friends, you know, they didn't have fathers in the home. So they were some pretty bad kids, you know. I mean, I had a lot of structure in my home. I mean, I was the type where I would have to come home, clean my room, change my clothes, and do play clothes for my school clothes. Yeah. And I mean, my house was clean because, I mean, of course, it was a Marine that was running it.
Yes.
But they worked. My mother and father worked a lot of hours. So while they were at work,
not too much supervision.
So I'm running around the streets with bunch of guys, and we all had, you know, different morals. And
right.
I was taught to hustle real young by my father, to work for my money. My dad
Right.
always taught me, you want some money, you're going to work for it. As a young kid, he had me, cutting lawns and stuff and, just doing different things for money. I wash cars for money, do different things. But then I started hanging around with friends who would go and steal things. I mean, I started stealing things with money in my pocket just,
Right.
because they were like, man, don't pay for that. And little at a time, I started getting busted, for stealing stupid stuff, bubble gum, and got busted for stealing Banaka, Brett sprays and stuff, and just stupid stuff. And my dad would get me, and he'd be like, "What the hell's wrong with you stealing? I give you money. You had $20 on you as a young kid, and you're still stealing."
Yeah.
And but like I said, though, they were at work, so I was involved, in stealing, writing on the walls, breaking into things. My crimes were just escalating.
Can I ask you one question, bro?
Yeah.
There was a lot of rival neighborhoods right there. How did you decide, or how did you get into the neighborhood you got in? Like, how did that work out?
It's kind of weird, though, because the neighborhood that I grew up in, that was like my home base, where it was more family. And it's a trip, though, because when my neighbors, older neighbors, were fighting, my kids my age, when their brothers and sisters were fighting, we would automatically go jump in. We're playing baseball in the front yard. We have baseball bats, and we'd run over there and jump in. And, the gangs from next door, from the next streets over and stuff, when they came over, we already knew, oh, they're coming over here for trouble.
Right.
Then as we grew older and stuff, man, things started escalating. I believe we were probably about 12 years old, 13 years old when we were first introduced to like our first little 25, older homies giving us little guns, 22s and stuff. And we would shoot them in the backyard like it was nothing, you know what I mean? Just shooting at the palm tree, shooting at birds and stuff. And man, they were real guns,
Yes.
And little at a time, they just started, as we started getting older and older, they started going from 22s, 25s to 38s, 9s to eventually, AKs, mini 14s, Tech 9s, to, man, there was even grenades in our neighborhood, so it was like a real righteous war zone.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was getting busted, for all these little things. But at 16 years old, though, when I was already full blown involved in the neighborhood by then, I ended up getting busted for a shooting. And at 16 years old, they figured since I had been getting busted and I had this paper trail of crimes, they were like, yeah, it's time to try him as an adult. He's already sophisticated enough to, attempt these murders and, I had
you're going to be killing someone real soon. Like someone's going to end up for sure dead that they know of, even if before they didn't know of it. And they're just like, let's get this kid off the streets, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And they were going to make an example of me. And, I was eventually charged for conspiracy to murder and attempted murder. And some other, they added some other stuff, possession of a gun and gang terrorism. They had a bunch of different things. But long story short, though, back in 1989 when I was originally arrested, they used some circumstances against me that they weren't supposed to use. And to prove my gang enhancements, they should have used some crimes related to my homeboys before I committed my crime, but instead they used some crimes after my crime, so it bit the authorities in the butt, and they couldn't use me for that. And there was a lot of different factors and not only that though, but man, it hurts me to just to mention it, but my own crime partner, my own homeboy, is the one that ended up turning us in. And he ended up skipping state. He actually went to Mexico in order not to testify against us. So in 1989, they couldn't bond us over to Superior Court on hearsay of a witness. They needed a physical witness at that time. Things have changed now. Now they could bond you over on hearsay. Back then, they needed an eyewitness to bond us over. So I had what they called a DA reject, and they let me go after fighting it a year and some months. They let me go. I got out on it. And I went home, and I swear, man, I
thought it was a wrap.
I thought that was a wrap. I thought that was behind me. So I ended up getting out and go right back to my neighborhood. It wasn't long that I found myself right back in the mix of everything. It happened all real quickly, And but this time, though, in the mix of all of that, though, I ended up getting with one of my homegirls. And when I say homegirl, she was like a ride or die homegirl. She wasn't just a homegirl. Excuse me, hanging out in the neighborhood. This girl was like one of the little shot callers for the homegirl. She was a soldier. She was kind of like me, but the female version. And me and her, we started just, we started talking, and next thing you know, we started hooking up, and within a couple of months, we got serious, and our whole talk ended up changing where I didn't realize that she was trying to get out of her own little madness, dealing, with a very dysfunctional family. She had a lot of hurts and a lot of other things, and I had my own little hurts, a little bit after me getting busted. Before I got busted, actually, my 4-year-old nephew had died, and he was my life. As a matter of fact, you went with me to his father's funeral from him overdosing when I came home. But earlier in my life, though, before I got busted, though, he was busted, and I was raising his son. And when he died, a part of me died where I didn't want to go home because my mom, my sister was crying. It was very depressing. So I was staying out in the streets a lot, because I didn't want to be home. I didn't want to be around my mom and them crying and stuff. I couldn't deal with that. But anyways, when I came home and trying to deal with a lot of them enclosures that I had from losing him and stuff and being in my neighborhood, I could relate to a lot of her pain and stuff. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I wanted to get out of my neighborhood, but I knew that there was something more for me. Right. Like I said, I started doing time. I seen a lot of homies getting killed. I seen a lot of just chaos in my life. And something in me was like, man, I want something better in my life.
Let me ask you a question. Did you yet believe in God or think about God or talk to God at that point?
I had a basic knowledge of God as far as like I my family was brought me up Catholic, but I swear I would go to church every Sunday and see Jesus on the cross and didn't know nothing more about that.
So there was no relationship?
There was no relationship. There was kind of like, head knowledge, but, I was so used to being Catholic, standing up, sitting down, standing up, sitting down. Yeah. There was nothing personal. I had never opened my Bible really to tell you the truth, Basic prayers were, what I was taught, the Hail Mary, Our Father, but that was it. It was never nothing really from my heart,
so
like crying out.
18 inches they talk about was the longest. It wasn't making the trip down. It was just here.
Yeah.
And that's cool. You were a young dude anyway. Yeah.
There was nothing really intimate, you know what I mean?
Right.
But at the same time, though, you know what? I want to, like,
on the
throw
flip,
something
when
in
something
there.
would go down, you'd
something had my attention, though, where I believed there was a God, though. I believed there was a God. Right. I just didn't know who he was or didn't know nothing about him. Right. But it's a trip, though, because even in all my gangbanging days, though, I had a rosary in my pocket, and I would go to confessions, though.
Yep.
Because
so
as a young boy, something deep down inside of me, I believe there was a God. And I would go to confession, and I would tell the priest, hey, I stabbed somebody this weekend. I shot up this house. I kicked in this door. Right. And I remember the priest would always tell me that one of my forms of repentance would be for me to turn in the gun, give them my knives. I'm like, nah.
Gotta be something else.
I was like, nah, Father, I can't do all that. You know what I mean? So there was really, I guess, I wasn't really repenting. I was kind of like saying something, but I would, as soon as I'd leave there, I'd cross the street, be right back in my hood. I'll be in confession with a pocket full of rock cocaine that I was selling, so there was really, really no trust. It was just like a form of religion where I thought maybe by going here, if I do die right now in the neighborhood, which is very possible, at least I made okays with God, But to speed it all up, though, when I got out from that DA reject and I got with this girl, we talked about starting a family, Reggie. We talked, we were young still, man. I was barely turning 17. I got out 16, 17. I was already 17. She was 16. We were talking about, let's get married. After I sell enough dope, we'll get us a little apartment. I wasn't even thinking a house. I was thinking apartment, away from the neighborhood. You know what I mean? Let's get pregnant. Let me get you pregnant. Let's have a baby. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And a little bit at a time, it started happening because she got pregnant. I come from a Mexican family that's very traditional, so they were like, you guys are getting married. So we went to Vegas. I had about 50 homeboys caravan to Vegas for our wedding. It was really big. We got married, went through all that. The next week, we had our reception back in the neighborhood. Ended up getting shot up, you know what I mean? Because that was our lifestyle. My wife was already a couple months pregnant. January, March, 4 months pregnant. She's 4 months pregnant. And I tell her, you know what, babes, let's get out of here. I didn't go too far. I went from La Puente to Almani, like 3 cities over, thinking I was really away from the neighborhood. But I was, though, because that was the first time I got a real job. I was working in a little molding company. I was just trying to be legit. I wasn't selling dope no more. I wasn't strapped. Everything was going good for us.
So it seemed like you were out, but you weren't quite out.
Yeah, I wasn't really checking in too much. My homeboys, and plus, my homeboys knew me. So they were like, he's taking care of his business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like I like dropped out and
Yeah.
just like, forget you fools,
Yeah.
I'm gone. But it was kind of like, man, I got to do something different. You know what I mean?
And they knew you got married. They knew she was knocked up. They knew you put in work. It wasn't.
Yeah,
So it just was the way it was, right?
Yeah, they knew I wasn't running from anything. It was just kind of, I was pursuing something else at that moment. And after being there for a while, 4th of July weekend, like I said, got her pregnant in January, got married in April, July. We decided to go back to my mom's house during that 4th of July weekend. It wasn't 4th of July, but it was like going into that weekend. And me and my brother, we ended up going to 7-Eleven and we just bought me a Gatorade, some chips, walking out. LA County sheriffs come up. You know, I'm thinking, I'm not running. I don't got no warrants. I'm cool. So they end up flashing their lights on us. They get my ID card. They get his and stuff. One cop's talking to us. The other one's running our names. The guy running our names comes back and draws down on me and tells me, don't move. You know, I'm like, what the heck? You know, like, what's going on? They said that there's a warrant for my arrest for 187. I was like, what? You know that? Man, you guys are tripping, you know?
Yeah.
They let my brother go. They take me in middle of the night. This was like 7 o'clock in the afternoon. Probably about 2 in the morning, gang unit pulls me out and they start, you know, I've known gang unit for a long time. So they're like, JoJo, man, where you been, man? Heard you got married, heard you having a baby, all this good stuff, man. I'm like, man, miss me with all that. What you guys want, man? You know, what's happening? You know, and the cops were known to pick up people and just try to fish information, you know, things that are happening. So I'm like, man, what's going on, man? You know, they tell me, man, this ain't even on us. DA from Pomona Court, we filed on you. I said, but filed on me for what? They said from your case from 2 years ago. So I'm like, what? I'm like, I beat that case, man. They're like, nah, you didn't beat it. It was a DA reject. There's a whole different thing. You never went to court. You were never, you know, you were never set free from it. There was a DA reject.
Basically, they didn't stay filed.
Yeah, DA came up with new information, and now here I am. So I'm there. I call home, tell my wife, you know what? It's over that stupid case, you know, from way back.
Yeah.
Don't trip. I got this.
Yeah.
We already had a lawyer that was representing me from before, so I said, get a hold of him, let him know what's up. So my whole intention was I'm going to county jail again. But remember, though, at this time, I had already, like, kind of, like, shifted my mindset to father, husband, trying to do the right thing. But now I'm back in this jungle, so I'm like, man, I'm going to try to play my cards right where I don't catch a murder in here because I'm thinking I'm going to go home. Yeah. But, you know, I still can't rank out and leave the homies, you know. So I'm like kind of walking a thin line, but I ain't volunteering, though, for sure.
Right.
I'm like, I ain't raising my hand for nothing right now. You know, I'm asking for the speeding trial, want to get out of here, be there probably by the time she has this baby because we're already counting down the months. And unfortunately, things didn't go that route. You know, the whole time we had all these motions in. My lawyer's saying they don't got no new evidence. You know, I put in motion discovery. Everything's still the same. So you got this. So I said, well, set up trial. Let's do this. You know, let's do this. So I go through the whole procedure again. The same witnesses come, say it's not me. They don't remember. They can't identify me. Everything's going good. The last witness, my homeboy comes in with all the gang unit. They got like 7 sheriffs.
The dude that went down to Mexico?
The one that's in Mexico. He came out here. He's in IE in Paris somewhere. Gets caught. They have a warrant for his arrest for not showing up for court. So the DA worked out a new deal with them to come testify. So they bring him. He's escorted in by like 7 Green Jackets, LA County Sheriff's gang unit. They walk him up all the way up to like the stand. They were standing like almost next to him. You know, and then he starts spilling his guts. And this was a homeboy that, man, I mean, he lived with me. He was a runaway. My mom took him into the house and everything. And when they started questioning him, they said that the only reason why he was testifying now is because I put a contract on his family and I endangered his family, and which was nonsense. Yeah, the homie shot up his pattern. I never had nothing to do with that, though. Yeah. I mean, he was a rat. He was a snitch. They seen paperwork. I didn't have to say nothing. That's just, you know what I mean? That's just a norm to that lifestyle, you know? Exactly. So anyways, speeding up the story, they end up deliberating because I'm in a full jury trial now. They come back September 26, 1991, found me guilty. At that same time, me being found guilty, my son's being born. That same day. Jerry comes back with the guilty verdict. I'm getting, you know, I'm making the call. She's in the hospital having the baby. So it's like, here I am, you know what I mean?
That's tough, man.
Yeah, it was tough, man. It was tough, but you know what? I went back to county jail, and God's my witness, man. As soon as I got back, shaved my head,
Back in the game,
put
you
on
had
that
to.
mask again, and said it's on. You know what I mean? Who's next?
How long did it take you to get shipped out? Did you get shipped directly to
Well,
Corcoran?
what happened though, because it was already almost 2+ years later, it was 89, 90, 91, almost 3 years later now. By the time I fought it and everything, by the time I'm being sentenced and everything, because I committed my crime at 16, they sent me to YA on
That's
observation to see whether or not YA would be fit for me.
Right.
So I wanted to go to Y because the nearest Y was in Chino, and I knew if I go to state, I could end up way up in Folsom somewhere. And I had this new baby. I wanted to be as close as I could to family because I knew
Had
if
you
I get
already
shot
been
up,
to YA before or no?
I was going to Y on the observation. I've been to juvenile hall. I've been
Right.
through that process, but not to YA
Okay,
yet.
so it's not like you knew how it was rolling there or anything like that per se.
Yeah.
And I heard like YA was almost more rock and roll than the joint because you got all these youngsters
way
trying
more,
to.
way more crazy than the joint.
Yeah.
I mean, man, there was more murders in Y than, I mean, shoot.
Everyone's trying to make a name for themselves.
Oh, yeah,
right?
there was
one
no
has
shot
any-
callers.
Yeah.
It's all gangbanging in there.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like being on the streets,
Yeah.
with weapons, no guns, but I mean, shoot, you have machetes, you have, spears, you
Yeah.
have a lot of crazy stuff jumping off. So YA,
And how long did you do in YA before you went to Corcoran?
I did probably about 6 years from there. I ended up going to Chino Palm
Okay.
Hall,
Mhm.
did a shoot term there
Mhm.
while under investigation for the murder of YA, which I left. But during this whole time, though, I ended up surrendering my life to Jesus Christ. So during this
What
process,
a place to do it at.
and I
man.
did it right after, though. I did it right after I stabbed somebody in Medium North, which is County Jail Wayside. And when I went to the hall, it was like no big deal. I was like, been here, done that, no big deal. But during that time, though, something happened. I found a little paper in between the bunk, man. In between the bunk, I found a little paper. And when you're in the hall, you're counting bricks, you're playing with ants, you're hoping that a mouse or something come in, anything to entertain you, right? But at this time, I found this little paper. That little paper, it could have been a note, a wheelie, it could have been whatever.
Yeah.
Happened to be a Bible track. And that Bible track, on the front of it, it talked about how God loves you. And I read it, I crumbled it, I threw it aside. I didn't flush it, though, and I didn't get rid of it, but it was there, though.
Yeah.
And I found myself coming back to it and opening it and reading it. I kept on reading it and reading it, and I finally had this outbreak, this kind of a catharsis where I cried out to God. Like, I cussed out God first.
Yes.
I pretty much said, God, you know what, if you were loving and all merciful and this and that, why did you allow my 4-year-old nephew to die? Why did you allow my family to be involved in gangs and drugs? And why this and why that? And just complaining. I was punching the walls. I was just like having a tantrum.
Yeah.
And I swear, man, I was crying. I mean, I'm by myself in this hole. Nobody could hear, nobody could see me, so I didn't have to save face.
Right.
And I went to sleep that night crying, man. And when I woke up, I swear, I couldn't even open my eyes. They were so puffy from crying. And something happened, man. I fell on my face right there in Wayside, no, in front of nobody. There was no church.
Yeah.
I didn't see no bright lights. I didn't hear no thunder, nothing. But I felt God just tugging at my heart and just telling me, like, I still have purpose for your life. And I didn't understand it, you know what I mean? But there was something different about when I fell down on the floor and I said, God, if you're real, man, I said, I just need you to change my heart. That's all I need. That's the only miracle I need right now. I'm not asking to go home. I'm not asking for nothing. I just need you to change this heart. And a couple of weeks went by. I ended up staying in the hole for a couple of weeks. And when I came out, I was still kind of like, I was able to get a Bible from one of the officers, and I was like just reading it and stuff. And when I came back to the main line, they let me go. I ended up going back to main line. As soon as I got there, the homies welcomed me back, gave me a care package, shook my hand, thanked me for taking care of that business with dude, and kind of already directed me to my next victim.
Right.
They were like, this dude is next. You know what I mean? They were like kind of telling me, hey, this is what's going on right now. And I said, man, let me just take a shower and let me, get it together. But that's why I was young. I had all day. Being sentenced to life, that meant like, hey, we're going to use these youngsters as much as possible. And I was raising my hand, you know what I mean? I was like, shoot, I'm in, use me. That's what I'm here for. And when the guy that they identified to be my next victim, I was like, God, I told you, man, I don't want to hurt nobody no more. You know what I mean? I didn't say that out loud to nobody,
Right.
but in my heart, I was like, I don't want to hurt nobody no more,
Yeah.
Richie. I was like, man, you know, when I prayed in that hole, I meant it.
Yeah.
And while I'm taking a shower, man, this was like when I started to see like how God was answering prayers. I was like, wow. I'm in the shower and I see the cops come in, and the guy that I'm supposed to hit, they escort him out. And I was like, I wonder if they're bringing him back or what the heck. But they ended up rolling up his stuff. So I'm already like, oh, thank you, God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, thank you that I don't got to do this. You know, like I just got back and here I go.
Catching another one.
So speeding up time, you know, I end up staying in county jail. I end up catching the train back to YA. I go to YA. God's using me. God's developing me. God's just doing all kinds of great things in my life. You know, I'm kind of bypassing my whole salvation thing.
Yeah.
There was this older guy in the county jail where I was supposed to hit this guy. His name was Gabriel. He was from a neighborhood in Inglewood called Tepa, right? Big dude, Christian dude. Well, I mean, he stood out among all the homies. You know what I mean? He was doing his own thing, Bible. One night he asked me, if you died tonight, he said, where will you spend eternity? And I told him, man, I think in heaven, you know what I mean? I believe in God, you know? And he ended up busting my bubble, telling me, nah, it's not that easy. And he runs me through the whole ABCs of salvation, give my life to the Lord. And I began serving God from there. And there was a lot of obstacles, you know, going against the grain, you know, not doing what I was doing, you know, because I was gambling, I was doing this, doing that. And now my life was through the eyes of a Christian, and I was serving God, and I wanted to serve God, and I was like, same way I serve my neighbor, same way I'm going to serve God. And you know, God gave me favor, and God protected me, and God guided me throughout my YA years, you know, which was probably about a good 6 years. I seen a lot of craziness, you know. When I got to prison, you know, same thing, you know, but I was fortunate because God always gave me favor with a lot of shot callers and a lot of knuckleheads that I knew from before, and they heard about my transformation. Right. So when I got there, you know, a lot of times, whatever prison I went to, it was as if I knew somebody. Yeah. And fortunately for me, a lot of times it was the shot callers that knew me and knew who I was and knew what I was today. So I kind of got a lot of passes. Yeah. And, you know, I was fortunate for that. There was a lot of people that try to change their lives in there. There's a lot more pressure to them. And for me, it was as if God had his hand over me, just guiding me and escorting me.
Before I met you, bro, like your name was around, bro, and you had a good name, bro. And people would talk about you, JoJo Slifer. All the dudes who got out of Corcoran, when they come, they'd always be talking about you, you know. Jesse, you know, just dudes, you touched them, man, and you helped them, man. And like you had a solid name, bro. It was a solid name, even though you weren't fucking up. You know?
That's one of the things, though, Richie, is that, you know, I never had to debrief. I never had to lock it up. And I always showed respect, you know, to the politics of the yard, even though I never crossed boundaries. I said, you know, I'm a Christian. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that because this is my new standards. And they respected that, you know what I mean? And I treated everybody equal, you know. And, you know, God opened the door for me in 2003 for me to be able to come home after some appeals and everything. From 45 years to life, it went to 25 years of life to life plus 5. I already had 13 in. They opened the door for me, and that's where you kind of became inspirational to me as one of my mentors through that whole transition, you know, because there was times where I wanted to go back because I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know how to be a husband. Especially to a teenager, you know, my son, I left her when she was pregnant. Had a lot of visits with them, you know, throughout the years. But, you know, I came home, man, and I wasn't quite ready to be a father, a husband, a provider. You know, I couldn't deal with a lot of emotions and stresses of even success because things started, my life was blessed.
Well, I remember even in the pad on your transition from prison to the streets, there were some times where you were getting not treated the way you felt you should, and you were right in a lot of ways, but it was about just sucking it up, man, and we'd have our little chats. But it's radical. Just one little side thing is, man, your wife, it's so rare that a woman will wait 13 years, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, and then
not even waiting 13 years.
Waiting life,
she didn't know. Yeah, she didn't know.
I mean, that's incredible, man.
Yeah.
I just want to give her like mad respect, mad props for that. That was so cool.
She's very rare, man. Very rare. Unfortunately, like I said, though, she's a part of them blessings, though, that followed, you know, me making that decision. And even my family, you know, I know we're winding it down, but just to tell you, though, where I'm at today from all of that, my oldest son today, you know, he's going to paramedic school. He's been an EMT the last 5. I mean, he never once got involved in the gangs, never been busted, none of that stuff, man. And, you know, I got a 12-year-old daughter that's a sergeant in the Young Marines. I mean, she's a straight A student. I got a black belt daughter in Taekwondo that she's 10 years old, very disciplined. And I got my 6-year-old son. So God's added to my family. And, you know, today I'm a drug and alcohol supervisor. I'm also a volunteer with LA Fire Department CERT unit. So a lot of things have been entrusted to me. There's a lot of pressures, but you know what? They're good. They're good things, you know. And you know, I'm still sick in the head in a sense.
Of course, brother.
But because of the lot of tools that you've given to me, Dr. Richie, you know how to cope with, you know, relationships, because like any relationship, we go through our ups and downs. But you know what? I know how to talk instead of putting hands on her, instead of just running off and doing dope or running to the homies. You know, you taught me, you know, through this process how to cope, you know what I mean, with my emotions. Not to just easily just so run off what I'm feeling, but to process my thoughts and play the tape all the way through and be able to trust the process, you know. And I'm glad that I never did go back to prison. I never relapsed to drugs or alcohol. I never, you know, went back to that gang lifestyle or that criminal lifestyle.
If I can
interject, been many times I wanted to.
I'm sure, bro. And what's radical is, even though I was your mentor in a sense, like you have been my mentor, and we did go back to prison, but go to talk to the brothers and then come back out, which was cool. And you never proselytized to me. You never jammed me up. I wouldn't have been ready for it or open for it at that point, but I seen how you changed. I seen how you live. I go to your dad's funerals, different things here and there. We lived our own lives, talk every once in a while to consult if something was jumping off, bro. And you had a big impact on me eventually accepting the Lord, bro, like a huge impact.
And you know,
bro.
Richie, when you sent me that text telling me about your commitment to the Lord, man, you know, I'm not a very emotional guy, man, around anything. You know, even at my father's burial, man, you know, it was, I mean, I couldn't really cry there. But when I got that, man, I cried and I shared with my wife. I said, Richie, man, gave his life to the Lord. And she knows your story, too, a little more so, you know what I mean, as far as where you were spiritually. You had some good morals, some good values, you know, some good insight and, you know, practicing spirituality, you know, for a long time. But it's totally different when you surrender to Jesus Christ. And I was like, I know the angels were rejoicing, but I was rejoicing, and man, I was like excited for you, you know what I mean? And still excited that, you know, our friendship here, whether we stick around here in earth for another 50 years, I can't compare to all eternity together, brother. So, you know, I thank you for inviting me here today, man. Thank you for being a part of my life. You know, thank you for just stabilizing me a whole lot of times, man. I mean, I know you're a therapist, you're my mentor and everything, but you're my brother, a friend, you know, and you know, I trust you with my life, brother. Thank you, man. Thank you for being a part of it.
Bro, and that's all I can say to you is thank you, bro. It's cool when, you know, iron sharpens iron. It's cool when each one teaches one. It's cool. It's not one up, one down. It's just two human beings on this planet who have made mistakes, who will still make mistakes, and that helped each other in little ways along the way, man, and just nothing but brotherly love, bro.
And just before I go, you know, to hear the more impact of my story, I got a book coming out.
That's right, and I wanted to tell for our viewers, man, Reformed, a gang member's life sentence became a saving grace, and man, you've heard the real deal from him, and he just dropped little bits, man, because we have a short amount of time, but this is a book you want to get, and when's it coming out, bro?
It should be coming out before the end of... I want to say probably by summertime.
Okay, cool.
Summertime. So right now it's all done. We're just messing with some publishers right now. It'll be out though shortly.
That's a blessing, bro. It's cool because there's a lot of people that can read that and maybe make a decision not to go down that road. And they say, you know, a wise man learns from his mistakes, but a wiser man learns from the mistakes of others, man. And if someone could learn from your mistakes, bro, and not have to do all those years and all that stuff, bro. I mean, it's a blessing that it turned out positive for you, and you were, you know, fruitful and multiplied, bro, after getting home, and that's a blessing, man. But it's just cool that you're putting that out to the world and that you put that out with us. I feel privileged that you came to speak, man. Thank you on this show. Lives matter because lives do matter, man. Life matters, you know.
If anybody wants to get a hold of me to get some information about the book, have me come out and speak, anything like that, they could hit me up on Facebook. It's JoJo Dalia Godinez. So you could add that to it. They could hit me up and hey,
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man.
It's good stuff. I appreciate it, bro. You taking the time out today. I can't wait to read your book. And let's stay connected and get all this other stuff we've been talking about worked out, bro.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, so